You've been taught to believe that if you're not in control, everything will fall apart, that if you loosen your grip even just a little, life will spiral into chaos. So you plan, you stress, you double-check every detail, you brace for the worst just in case. And still, things don't go as planned. Have you noticed that? No matter how much you try to orchestrate every outcome, life moves how it wants to. It doesn't ask your permission, it doesn't check your calendar. It doesn't always reward effort or follow logic or play by your expectations, and yet it continues. The sun still rises, the seasons still shift, your heart keeps beating without you telling it to. There's a rhythm here, a silent choreography beneath everything, and it's not random, it's deeply intelligent. But to feel it, to really feel it, you have to stop gripping so tightly. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world. That was never your job. Somewhere along the way you picked up the idea that you had to be in charge, that you had to be the thinker, the planner, the fixer. You internalized the pressure of being the one responsible for how everything turns out. But none of that came from your soul, that came from fear. Because fear hates uncertainty, and control is its favorite disguise. But what if I told you, no, let me say it this way, what if deep down you already know that control is exhausting, that no matter how many times you've tried to force something into place, it never quite fits the way you hoped? That's because life isn't a puzzle to be solved, it's a river, and you are not here to build the dam, you're here to flow. The peace you've been chasing, it's not at the end of your checklist, it's not in the next goal, the next achievement or the next plan, it's in the surrender. And surrender isn't about giving up. That's the biggest misunderstanding. Surrender is about finally aligning with what's real, what's already happening, without resistance. It's about saying, I trust the current more than I trust my fear. Right now, you might be facing uncertainty. Maybe something isn't going the way you hoped. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you're afraid to let go because you don't know what's on the other side. But here's the thing. You don't need to know. You were never supposed to know. Your mind wants guarantees. Your soul only wants truth. And the truth is, you've never been separate from the intelligence that moves life. You've just been taught to ignore it. You've been taught to believe that effort equals worth, that struggle equals success, that control equals safety. But none of those things are true, and you can feel that in your body. You can feel it in the tension in your shoulders, in the endless loop of thoughts that never seem to stop, in the fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. That's the cost of control, but here's the miracle. You can lay it down. You can decide in this moment that you're done trying to force outcomes, that you're done trying to manipulate reality into fitting your preferences, that you're ready to trust something deeper than your fear. Because beneath all the noise, there's a stillness in you, a presence, a space that's never been touched by worry. It's not your thoughts. It's not your emotions. It's not even your name. It's the awareness that's watching it all. And the moment you recognize that, the moment you begin to rest in that quiet watcher behind the noise, everything starts to shift. You begin to notice the synchronicities, the ease, the way life begins to arrange itself without your constant interference. You begin to feel guided rather than burdened. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less. Less forcing, less fearing, less fighting with what is. This is the paradox. When you let go, life moves. When you surrender, you finally align with the current that's always been there, flowing toward something bigger than your imagination could ever conceive. Can you feel it? Even now, maybe just a little? That gentle sense that you don't have to fight so hard anymore, that maybe, just maybe, you were never supposed to. So take a breath, and then another, and let this truth settle into your bones. Your only job is to let the universe take over. Let it in, that breath you just took. You didn't force it. It came on its own. You didn't need to think about it, direct it, or control its timing. It was given to you, just like the next one will be. That's the rhythm of life. That's the evidence you've been overlooking. You've never been the orchestrator. You've always been the vessel. And that's not weakness. That's liberation. But the mind doesn't like that. It resists. It clings to its role as the fixer, the achiever, the one who must hold everything together. It whispers, "If I don't plan, everything will fall apart. If I don't figure it out, who will?" And yet, with all of its figuring, all of its planning, how often has it truly brought you peace? Peace isn't a result of control. Peace is what's left when control falls away. The more you try to command life, the more you distance yourself from it. Because life is not meant to be commanded, it's meant to be witnessed. Like a movie playing on a screen, frame after frame unfolding with its own rhythm, its own music, its own story. And you're not the character on the screen. You're the presence in the audience, quietly watching. You feel everything the character feels, you move with the plot, but you are not bound to it. You are the silent witness, unchanging, unmoving, timeless. That's who you really are. And once you understand that, surrender is no longer scary. It becomes natural. You stop fighting the script. You stop yelling at the screen. You lean back, you breathe in, and you let the story unfold. Not because you're passive, not because you're indifferent, but because you finally trust the intelligence behind the story. You understand that even when the scene is painful or confusing or doesn't make sense in the moment, it belongs. It's part of a larger whole you can't yet see. And that's okay, because it's not your job to see the whole picture. It's your job to be present with each frame. This is the sacred art of letting go. Not letting go out of defeat, but letting go out of alignment. You begin to feel the current underneath the surface of your life, and you stop swimming against it. You stop exhausting yourself with all the what-ifs and should-haves. You stop demanding clarity from a universe that's always known exactly what it's doing. You become still, and in that stillness something extraordinary begins to happen. The things you used to chase, they start to come to you. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. Not because you gave up, but because you gave in to something deeper, wider, more intelligent than your thoughts could ever grasp. Call it God, call it the universe, call it source. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you finally realize it's been here all along, carrying you, guiding you, loving you through every twist and turn, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to let it in. And letting it in begins with this one choice: to surrender. To say, I don't know the way, but I trust the one who does. To release the need to know how it all works out and instead fall in love with the unfolding. There's something poetic, almost divine, about living this way. You wake up not needing to conquer the day, but to meet it. You begin to respond instead of react. You hear your intuition more clearly. You recognize the signs you used to miss. You stop wrestling with life and you start dancing with it. And it all starts the moment you release the need to control. Because the one who needs control is not the real you, it's the idea of you. The mental character you've been taught to protect and perform, the one who needs validation, guarantees, and applause. But that character isn't your essence, it's a role, a mask. And you're allowed to take it off. You're allowed to stop playing the hero, the savior, the planner, the one who always has it figured out. You're allowed to not know, to breathe, to rest, to trust the invisible thread weaving through your life, even when you can't see where it leads. Because that thread is real. You've felt it, haven't you? In those quiet moments when something inside you whispered, "This is right," even if it made no logical sense. In the way a path appeared when you finally stopped searching. In the way people entered your life at exactly the right time. That wasn't randomness. That wasn't coincidence. That was alignment. And alignment doesn't come from force. It comes from flow. It comes when your energy matches the energy of life itself. And life by its very nature is fluid, spacious, ungraspable. So to align with it, you have to become like it, fluid, spacious, ungraspable. You have to soften. Let yourself soften right now. Let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tension you've been carrying melt, even if just a little. There's nothing to fix in this moment. There's nothing to plan. There is only this breath, this stillness, this quiet remembering. That you are not the one making life happen. Life is happening through you. So can you let it? Can you let the river carry you instead of swimming upstream? Can you allow the next chapter to arrive without forcing it to look like the last one? Can you sit in the unknown without turning it into a problem that needs solving? Because the unknown is not your enemy. It's your access point to magic. Everything you've ever loved, everything that ever changed your life came from the unknown. You didn't plan your most transformative moments. They found you. You didn't script your deepest breakthroughs. They arrived uninvited, unannounced, and yet right on time. And that's the mystery you're being invited back into. Not a mystery to be solved, but to be trusted. You don't need to understand it. You just need to stop resisting it. Because the truth is, when you finally let go, when you stop holding your breath and start releasing your grip on how it all should be, you don't fall apart. You fall into place. You fall into a rhythm that was always there. A rhythm that never needed your stress, your overthinking, or your worry to function, because life was never asking you to manage it. It was only asking you to meet it, to be here, to be available, to be open enough to receive what's already making its way to you. The deepest form of alignment happens not when you manipulate your reality, but when you become transparent enough for reality to move through you, like a clear window letting sunlight in, like a leaf floating on water. There's no resistance in that, just presence, just trust. And it's not passive. Don't confuse surrender with giving up. That's not what this is. This isn't apathy. This is aliveness without the strain. Action without the grasping. It's knowing when to move, not because your mind is panicking, but because your inner wisdom is speaking. You know that voice, that quiet guidance that doesn't shout, doesn't push, doesn't demand, it just whispers, and the more you let go, the louder it gets, because control drowns it out, but surrender amplifies it. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful moments in your life didn't come from control? They came from presence, from being in the right place at the right time, for reasons you couldn't explain, from making a choice that made no logical sense, but felt undeniably true. That's not randomness. That's resonance. That's what happens when you trust the rhythm instead of the reasoning. That's what happens when you let the universe take over. And when you do, you start to see differently. You notice beauty you used to rush past. You feel gratitude for things you never even saw before. You experience peace not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer resisting what is. Imagine that for a moment. Waking up with nothing to prove, nothing to force, nothing to hold together. Just a quiet, steady awareness that life is not against you, that it never was. That maybe the struggle was only there because you didn't know how to stop fighting. And now you do. You can choose ease. You can choose to soften, to exhale, to let go of the mental weight that's been pressing on your chest for far too long. You can choose to trust the silence, the not knowing, the sacred space between the question and the answer. You don't need to rush to the next step. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not failing. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Because this moment, this one, right here, is the only thing that's ever been real. Everything else is a thought, a memory, a projection, but this is alive. And when you meet life in the now, you finally become part of its intelligence. You stop standing in its way. You stop trying to outthink what already knows. You stop acting like the universe needs your stress in order to do its job. And the truth is, it doesn't. The trees don't worry about blooming. The waves don't question the tide. The moon doesn't try to shine brighter. They just allow. They just are. And somehow, everything finds its way into balance. You're no different. You're not separate from that intelligence. You're not outside of that wisdom. You are it. You're made of it. And when you remember that, when you return to that, everything changes. Not because the outside world shifts instantly, but because your relationship to it does. You no longer need to cling to outcomes. You no longer panic when plans fall through. You begin to see that every detour, every delay, every closed door was never a punishment. It was redirection, protection, grace in disguise. You stop needing signs because you become the sign. Your energy, your calm, your presence, that becomes the indicator that you're in alignment. And from that place, action becomes effortless. Decisions become clear. You don't move from pressure, you move from peace. That's the gift of surrender. It doesn't take away your power, it reveals your true power. Because your power was never in controlling the storm, it was always in becoming the sky, the vast, open, spacious sky, untouched by the clouds, unmoved by the noise, holding it all in perfect awareness. That's what you are. And yes, your mind will forget, it will panic, it will spiral, it will tell you that you have to do something right now, that if you don't act fast, something bad will happen, that you need to figure it out, fix it, force it. But that's just the old programming. That's just fear masquerading as responsibility, and you don't have to listen to it anymore. You can pause, you can breathe, you can remember that urgency is not truth, that the most important things in your life have never come from panic, they've come from presence. They've come when you were aligned, when you were available, when you stopped trying so hard. So stop trying so hard. Let yourself be held. Let yourself be guided. Let the current carry you for once. You're not here to control the river. You're here to learn how to float. And as you float, as you trust, as you surrender more deeply than you ever have before, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to feel safe, not because everything is certain, but because you no longer need it to be. You start to feel loved, not because someone else says it, but because you feel it radiating from within. You start to feel enough, not because you've done enough, but because you've finally remembered you were never not enough. That's the remembering that changes everything. And it doesn't require you to learn more, do more, or fix anything. It just asks you to stop long enough to feel what's already here. Right now, in this breath, in this moment, you are whole. You don't need to grasp for anything. You don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to prove a thing. You are allowed to rest, and when you rest, when you finally rest, the universe can begin to work through you. Because it's never needed your perfection, only your permission. That's all it takes. Your permission. Not your struggle, not your effort, just your openness, just your yes, just the quiet choice to stop trying to be the architect of everything and instead become the space where everything is allowed to unfold. And it will unfold, it always does. Life has never stopped unfolding, not once. Even in your darkest moments it kept moving. Even when you thought everything had fallen apart, something in you remained, watching, breathing, waiting. That something is your awareness, pure, silent, untouched. It doesn't need to be improved. It doesn't need to be healed. It only needs to be remembered. And the moment you remember, even for a second, you realize you're not here to control life. You're here to merge with it. You're here to feel it, to trust it, to allow it to pass through you like wind through open hands. You'll still make choices, you'll still take action, but it won't come from anxiety. It will come from clarity. You'll be moved, not pushed, guided, not driven, aligned, not desperate. That's the difference surrender makes. You begin to live in rhythm instead of resistance. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to witness the miracle in the mundane because you're no longer rushing to the next thing. You're no longer waiting for your life to begin. You're in it now, fully, lovingly, trustingly, and in that trust, something sacred awakens. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop defining your value by results. You stop needing every moment to look how you imagined it would. Instead, you open. You open to life as it is, to the messy, unpredictable, glorious, mysterious dance that is this human experience. You stop clenching, you stop chasing. you soften. And when you soften, you return. You return to the stillness that's always been waiting underneath the noise. You return to the quiet knowing that never left you, even when you couldn't hear it. You return to the part of you that doesn't need answers, because it is the answer. The part of you that isn't afraid of uncertainty, because it was born from the unknown. That part of you doesn't need to plan every step. It trusts the ground will rise to meet you. It knows the path will appear as you walk. It knows that the mind was never meant to carry the burden of life. It was only meant to witness the unfolding. You were meant to trust, to feel, to follow, not blindly but boldly, not recklessly but reverently. Because the truth is, there is a deeper wisdom within you than your mind has ever known. A wisdom that doesn't use words. A wisdom that doesn't need logic. A wisdom that doesn't operate on timelines and checklists and 5-year plans. It operates in presence, in listening, in quiet certainty. And when you surrender, you make space for that wisdom to speak. You become a tuning fork for divine timing. You become a vessel for sacred insight. You become less of a doer and more of a receiver. And that's where the real magic lives, in the receiving, not in the forcing, not in the grasping, but in the still, soft space of saying yes to what is, because what is always enough. Even when it doesn't look like it, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand. Life doesn't owe you understanding before it reveals beauty. Sometimes it asks you to trust without clarity, to walk without a map, to love without conditions. That's the surrender it's calling you into, not the kind that collapses, the kind that rises, the kind that opens its hands and says, I trust what's coming more than I fear what's leaving. The kind of surrender that turns your entire life into a prayer, a living, breathing devotion to the present moment, not in knowing, in allowing, not in controlling, in receiving, not in clinging, in releasing. And the more you live this way, the more you start to see how much you were trying to carry, how much weight wasn't yours, how much pressure you placed on your own chest. And slowly, gently, you start putting it down. The timelines, the labels, the expectations, you let them go one by one like leaves falling from a tree. And what's left? You, bare, real, present, and somehow enough. Not because you've done everything right, not because you've checked all the boxes, but because you've remembered that none of that is required to be worthy. Your being is enough. Your breath is enough. Your presence is enough. That's all the universe has ever asked of you. To be here, to be available, to be open enough to receive what's already on its way. You don't need to beg for alignment. You were born aligned. You don't need to chase abundance, you are made of it. You don't need to force love, you are the space it moves through. Let that sink in. You were never separate from what you're seeking. You just forgot how to stop looking long enough to receive it. And now, you're remembering. Every time you choose trust over tension, every time you pause instead of panic, every time you let go instead of gripping harder, you are remembering. You are re-entering the stream. You are becoming what you already are. And the universe, it responds to that. Not because you're doing something special, but because you're finally not doing what blocks it. You're finally out of your own way. And when you step aside, when you become the space instead of the obstacle, life flows. Ideas flow, people flow, peace flows. The next step appears not because you hunted it down, but because you created space for it to rise. That's the secret most people miss. It's not about doing more, it's about doing less, from a deeper place. It's about becoming so rooted in presence, so anchored in trust, that you don't need to grasp anymore. You become a magnet for everything that's already yours, not because you chased it, but because you matched it. And matching it starts with letting go. Let go. Let go of the story that says you need to prove something. Let go of the fear that says it won't work unless you suffer for it. Let go of the lie that says you're behind, unworthy, or not ready. You are ready. You always were. And now? Now you know. You've spent so long trying to hold it all together, but the truth is nothing is falling apart. It's just falling into place in ways your mind couldn't predict. That's not chaos. That's order beyond understanding. That's the sacred rearrangement that happens when you stop trying to rearrange everything yourself. The mind resists this. It craves blueprints, structure, certainty. It wants to map every step before taking the first one. But life doesn't work like that. Life invites you to move before the outcome is revealed, to trust before there's proof, to walk in faith, not formulas. And you can do that now, because you're beginning to remember what you are. Not a mind filled with thoughts, not a body pushing through the day, but awareness itself. Boundless, quiet, limitless, the backdrop of all experience. When you sink into that, you realize the character you've been trying to fix, improve, upgrade, it's just a role. It's not the one watching, it's not the one aware. And the more you rest in that knowing, the more you can loosen your grip on the identity that's always been afraid. You don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to pretend to be okay when you're not. You don't have to figure out how everything ends. You are allowed to be here as you are, without answers, without perfection, without the pressure to carry what was never yours. Because your only real job is to be still enough to hear the inner whisper, to be present enough to feel when it's time to act and when it's time to wait, to be quiet enough to notice the signs that were always there, just beyond the noise. And the signs are everywhere, in the timing of a conversation, in the pause between plans, in the way your body relaxes when something is aligned, in the sense of ease that follows a surrendered decision. That's the universe speaking, not in words but in resonance. You've always had access to this guidance. The problem was never that it wasn't speaking, it was that the voice of fear was louder. But fear only gets loud when you believe you're alone, and you are not alone. You've never been alone. Even in your silence, something sacred was listening. Even in your confusion, something deeper was guiding. Even when you doubted everything, something within you still knew. And that knowing is still here, waiting for your return. You return by softening, by releasing the need to make life make sense, by relaxing your grip on the story you thought had to happen, by recognizing that the moment you stop clinging to what you thought you needed, you make space for something greater. And that greater thing, it doesn't always look how you imagined, it rarely does, but it always carries the signature of truth. You'll feel it in your chest, in the stillness of your breath, in the peace that follows even the hardest choices. That's how you know you're aligned, not by how easy it is, but by how true it feels. You don't need to rush toward clarity, it will arrive when you're ready to receive it. You don't need to chase certainty, the more you chase it, the more it runs. But the moment you sit down, breathe deeply, and surrender to not knowing, it finds you. There is power in that pause, that sacred surrendered moment when you finally stop running, stop fixing, stop searching, and instead open your hands to what's here. That's when life rushes in, not because you demanded it, but because you finally got out of the way. Let that land. Let it move through you. Let it replace the story that said you had to carry this alone. You don't. You never did. And now you get to live from a new place. A place of receiving. A place of listening. A place of deep, unshakable trust. This trust isn't naive. It's not passive. It's the most grounded thing in the world. Because it says, I know what I am. I know what's carrying me. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to fight this moment. I can allow it. I can rest here. I can trust that what's unfolding is wiser than anything I could have planned. That's real power. That's the kind of power no one can take from you, because it's not based on outcomes. It's based on presence. And presence doesn't need a reason to be enough. It just is. You're already enough. Not because you've earned it, but because you exist. And existence itself is the proof of your worth, the breath in your lungs, the stillness behind your thoughts, the awareness that's never left you. That's your foundation. That's your home. So let yourself come home right now. Let yourself exhale. Let yourself release the future. Let yourself untangle from the past. Let yourself return to this moment, this breath, this now. Because now is where life lives. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. And in the now there is nothing missing. In the now you are held. In the now you are whole. The mind will try to pull you out. It will remind you of your to-do list, your fears, your deadlines, your doubts. That's okay. Let it talk. But don't follow it. Don't let it convince you that peace exists somewhere else. It doesn't. It's right here. Always has been, and the more you choose it deliberately, gently, again and again, the more it becomes your natural state. Not something you visit, but something you live from. Not a rare moment, but your default way of being. That's what surrender creates. A life where you are no longer pushing against the flow, but moving with it. A life where you stop trying to control the waves and instead learn how to surf. And sometimes the waves will be big, sometimes the sky will go dark, but you won't be afraid, because you'll know you are not the wave. You are not the storm. You are the ocean. Calm, deep, vast, unchanging. Let that remembrance rise in you. Let it anchor you. Let it hold you through the unknown. You are not here to carry it all. You are here to trust the one who already is. You can feel it now, can't you? That deeper current beneath the surface of your thoughts. The quiet hum that's always been there. That's the real you. Not the voice in your head, but the presence underneath it. Not the storm, but the sky that holds it all. And the more you listen to that presence, the more life begins to unfold with grace. Not because things get easier, but because you stop making them harder. You stop adding resistance. You stop trying to swim upstream when the current is already carrying you exactly where you need to go. And yes, there will be moments when your mind tries to take the wheel again. It'll panic. It'll say, we need a plan, we need to fix this, we need to control it before it goes wrong. And in those moments, you don't need to fight your mind. You just need to notice it, smile at it, thank it for trying to help, and then return to your breath. Return to this moment. Return to trust. Trust is not a feeling, it's a practice, it's a posture, it's a way of being. It means opening your hands even when you're afraid. It means saying yes to life even when it doesn't look how you thought it would. It means remembering over and over again that you are not the architect of the universe, and you don't have to be. Your only job is to show up, to listen, to follow the gentle nudge instead of the loud fear, to be present enough to hear what's calling you forward. And when you live like that, you begin to move with the rhythm of life instead of against it. You begin to notice that things come together when you stop chasing them. That clarity appears when you stop demanding answers. That the next step shows up when you stop trying to see the whole staircase. This is the dance of surrender. It's not always soft. Sometimes it requires courage. Sometimes it asks you to let go of things you thought you couldn't live without. Sometimes it invites you to walk into the unknown with nothing but trust in your heart. But what you gain in return is everything. Peace that doesn't depend on conditions. Freedom that isn't attached to outcomes. A quiet joy that lives beneath all circumstances. And a deep, unshakable knowing that you are held, always, by something far greater than your plans. You were never meant to carry the burden of control. You were meant to co-create, not dictate. To listen, not to dominate. To harmonize with life, not to wrestle with it. And the moment you begin to live from that place, your energy changes. People can feel it. The universe responds to it. Doors open not because you kicked them down, but because you aligned with the frequency that unlocks them. You begin to live like a river, moving, flowing, trusting the bends and curves and even the still waters. Not rushing to reach the sea, but becoming the sea along the way. And you begin to see that nothing was ever against you. Not the delays, not the detours, not even the heartbreaks. They were all part of your unraveling, part of your softening, part of your remembering that control is a cage and surrender is the key. So ask yourself now, what are you still trying to control? What outcome are you clinging to? What fear is whispering that if you let go, everything will fall apart? Now breathe and ask a deeper question. What if letting go is the only thing that will set you free? What if the thing you fear releasing is the very thing keeping you stuck? What if the path you can't yet see only appears when you stop trying to force it? Let yourself feel that. Not in your mind, in your body, in your heart, in your breath. Let yourself remember what it feels like to trust the intelligence of life. To believe that just because you can't see the destination doesn't mean you're lost. You're not lost. You're in between. You're becoming. You're being shaped by invisible hands, not broken, not forgotten, just guided in ways your mind cannot yet comprehend. So let yourself fall into that guidance. Let yourself lean back into something ancient and vast and kind. Let yourself rest, not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer need it to be. There is a rhythm carrying you, a river flowing through your life. And every time you surrender to it, you dissolve a little more of the illusion that you were ever supposed to do this alone. You weren't. You never were. Even in your most isolated moments, something was holding you. Call it grace, call it spirit, call it source. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, and it's always here, closer than your next breath, waiting for you to return to it. And returning is simple. It begins with a breath, it deepens with your willingness, it unfolds as you begin to let go of the belief that you have to be the one steering everything all the time. You don't. You can rest your hands, you can close your eyes, you can feel into the stillness beneath all the noise. That's your anchor. That's your sanctuary. Everything outside of that is temporary. Thoughts will come and go, emotions will rise and fall, circumstances will shift. But the awareness that's watching it all, that's who you are. That's what's constant. And that awareness doesn't panic, it doesn't grasp, it doesn't try to rush the unfolding, it just is, calm, present, open. When you remember that, your life becomes simpler, not because all your problems vanish, but because your relationship to them transforms. You stop reacting, you start responding, you stop resisting, you start flowing. And suddenly, life begins to move with you. Things line up, connections happen, miracles feel ordinary, not because you figured it all out, but because you finally stopped needing to. You trusted instead, and in that trust, everything changed. Maybe you didn't realize how much you were holding, how many invisible weights you'd been carrying, expectations, fears, timelines. Stories that told you you had to do it all, be it all, hold it all together. But now something inside you is starting to loosen, the weight is softening, the grip is weakening, and in its place, space is opening. Space for grace, space for ease, space for a new way of living that doesn't depend on striving, proving, or controlling. That's where life breathes. Not in the grasping, but in the opening. Not in the fight, but in the surrender. Not in the certainty, but in the quiet willingness to trust what comes next. This isn't about abandoning responsibility. It's about redefining your relationship to it. You're still showing up, still making choices, still moving forward, but now you're doing it from a place of deep alignment, not force. From a place of presence, not panic. And that subtle shift changes everything. Because when you move from alignment, things begin to unfold with less resistance. The right people show up, the right doors open, the path becomes clearer, not because you mapped it all out in your head, but because you listened, you waited, you allowed. You let the next step reveal itself instead of forcing it into existence. This is the wisdom the ego will never understand. The ego believes control equals safety, but your soul knows control is the very thing keeping you from it. Your soul doesn't want a plan, it wants a presence. It doesn't crave certainty, it craves connection. It doesn't need to know where the river ends, it just wants to merge with the flow. That's why you've been feeling the pull to slow down, the pull to let go, the pull to release the old ideas of who you thought you had to be, so that the real you, the deeper you, can finally emerge. Not the version shaped by fear, not the version created to survive, but the version of you that is whole, spacious, aware, the one who trusts the unfolding even when it's uncertain, the one who knows that something sacred is holding it all. And when you live from that knowing, there's a peace that moves into every part of your life. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing validation. You stop obsessing over what's next, because you realize you've already arrived. The peace isn't later. It's not after the next goal or the next breakthrough or the next level of success. It's here. It's always been here. Hidden underneath the noise of trying to control what was never yours to control. You were just taught to reach instead of receive, to push instead of pause, to fight instead of flow. And now, you're unlearning all of that, not by effort, but by remembering. And as you remember, you come back into harmony, harmony with your breath, harmony with your intuition, harmony with the natural rhythm of life that's been guiding you all along. You're not late, you're not behind, you haven't missed anything. Everything you've walked through has led you here, to this exact moment of release, of clarity, of reconnection. So now you get to choose again, not from fear, not from scarcity, but from presence. You get to ask a new question, not how do I make it happen, but what wants to happen through me. Because you're not the source, you're the channel. You're not the force, you're the field. You're not the controller, you're the current. And when you surrender to that, when you truly allow yourself to be moved by something greater than your mind, you become magnetic, not because you're doing more, but because you're finally becoming who you already are. People feel that. Life responds to that. You don't have to broadcast it. You don't have to prove it. You simply radiate it through your stillness, through your trust, through the way you allow things to unfold without needing to manipulate them. That's where true confidence is born. Not from controlling the outcome, but from knowing that whatever comes, you'll meet it with grace, you'll meet it with presence, you'll meet it from your deepest center. And that's what changes your life, not the external shift, but the internal shift that says, I no longer need to hold it all, I trust what's holding me. That trust doesn't mean everything will always be easy, but it does mean that you'll stop abandoning yourself when it gets hard. You'll stay rooted, you'll stay open, you'll stay in the space of listening even when the answers aren't immediate. Because you know now that life speaks in whispers, that guidance doesn't shout, that the truth isn't always loud, but it is always clear. And when you make space for it, when you stop trying to force clarity, it rises up like the sun, gently, inevitably, brilliantly, and you realize, maybe for the first time, you never needed to be in charge. Because you were never alone. There has always been something moving you, holding you, guiding you. Even in the moments you felt furthest from it, you were never separate. Even when your mind told you were lost, your soul knew exactly where you were. And now you're remembering, not learning something new, but returning to what you've always known. That surrender isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of softness, the beginning of peace, the beginning of a new way of being in the world, not as someone who grasps for life, but as someone who receives it. You're not here to chase alignment, you're here to relax into it. You're not here to fix yourself, you're here to remember you were never broken. You're not here to control the outcome, you're here to trust the unfolding. And the more you live this way, the more you'll find that life becomes simpler, not because it changes on the outside, but because your inner landscape shifts. There's less fear, less striving, less grasping, and in its place, more breath, more presence, more peace. Not because the world got quieter, but because you did. And in that quiet, you remembered the only thing that's ever been true. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to let the universe take over. And as it does, you begin to notice how much effort you used to waste trying to control what was never yours. You see how many sleepless nights were spent worrying about things that resolved themselves the moment you let go. You look back on the moments you thought you'd lost everything, only to realize they were the beginning of something far greater. Isn't it interesting how the things that fall apart are often the ones that were never truly aligned in the first place? When you let the universe take over, you stop needing explanations. You stop needing everything to make sense. You stop needing to know why something happened in order to move forward. Because forward is always happening, with or without your understanding. Life doesn't wait for your approval to flow, it simply flows. And now you get to flow with it. Not in opposition but in union, not as a separate entity trying to force alignment, but as the presence that alignment naturally moves through. You become the space where life expresses itself fully. And that is freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from external change. The kind of freedom that's already alive inside you. The kind that returns the moment you stop resisting what is. The kind that rises when you stop editing reality and start embracing it. This is the kind of life that doesn't need constant fixing, it just needs your presence. It just needs your willingness to see that you are never behind, never broken, never lost. You were only disconnected from the truth of who you are. But you're not disconnected anymore. You've come back. You've come back to yourself, to the calm underneath the chaos, to the wisdom underneath the noise, to the presence underneath the plans. And now, everything changes. Not because you force it to, but because the moment you return to who you are, life begins to mirror that return. Circumstances shift, people respond, energy clears, things move not because you pushed, but because you stopped blocking the flow. This is what surrender does. It opens the gates. It removes the interference. It reminds you that life doesn't need to be micromanaged. It just needs to be trusted, like a seed growing into a tree, like a tide rolling in, like a breath rising and falling. Can you feel that breath now, that soft inhale moving through your body, that exhale releasing tension you didn't even know you were holding? That is the rhythm of trust. That is what it feels like to stop bracing against life and start allowing it to carry you. You don't need all the answers to be at peace. You don't need the whole picture to feel secure. You don't need to predict what's next in order to feel safe right now. Safety isn't out there. It's in here. It's in the space within you that doesn't flinch when things get uncertain, the space that knows how to sit in the unknown without needing to fill it. That's the part of you that never left, that never panicked, that never doubted. That's the part of you that's always known everything is unfolding exactly as it should, that the detours are not mistakes, that the pauses are not punishments, that the delays are not denials. They're alignment. And now, because you've let go of trying to force what's not meant for you, what is meant for you has space to arrive. Effortlessly, clearly, in perfect timing, not because you controlled it, but because you aligned with the you that no longer needs to control. That's the paradox of surrender. The moment you stop chasing what you thought you needed, you receive exactly what your soul was always calling in, not the version your mind demanded, but the deeper, truer, more expansive version that your heart was quietly preparing you to receive all along. And it's here now. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in the form you expected, but it's here, in this peace, in this breath, in this deeper knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. Let yourself rest in that knowing. Let yourself stop searching for a moment. Let yourself trust that the universe has already received your deepest prayers, your silent intentions, your wordless dreams, and even now, in ways you can't see yet, it is orchestrating a path that will lead you somewhere better than your plans ever could. Not because you earned it, but because you finally allowed it, allowed the help, allowed the peace, allowed the unfolding, allowed yourself to be carried instead of trying to carry it all. That's when life becomes miraculous, not when you control it, but when you surrender to the mystery of it, when you let it be bigger than your logic, when you stop thinking your job is to solve life like a puzzle and start treating it like a song you get to dance with. No one teaches you how to do this. You remember it. You remember it when the striving wears you out. You remember it when the weight gets too heavy. You remember it when your mind runs out of strategies and all that's left is presence. And in that presence something awakens, something ancient, something sacred, something that says, you're safe now. You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to chase. You don't have to fix. You're already home. And home doesn't require effort. It just asks you to rest, to be still enough to feel it, to be quiet enough to hear it, to be soft enough to receive it. And you can let go, you can surrender. You can fall into the arms of a universe that has only ever wanted you to remember that you were never alone, never separate, never without support. You've just been distracted, pulled into the noise, but the silence never left, and now you're returning to it. Not to escape life, but to meet it from your wholeness, to meet it from your groundedness, to meet it from a depth of trust that cannot be shaken by outcomes. And that kind of trust, it doesn't just change your life, it changes the way life shows up for you. Because when you surrender, you stop sending out the energy of lack, you stop broadcasting fear, you start radiating trust. And the universe always reflects that. Not instantly, not always in the ways you expect, but always in the ways you need. And your only job is to let it. Let the love in, let the healing in, let the alignment in, let the path reveal itself step by step without needing to force the pace or skip ahead. Let yourself be surprised by how much support is already around you. Let yourself notice the little nudges, the quiet synchronicities, the moments that seem ordinary but are anything but. That call from someone you were just thinking about. That sudden peace after days of noise. That idea that lands in your mind like it came from somewhere else. It did. And it's always been trying to reach you. You were just too busy trying to think your way through what can only be felt. But now you're ready to feel it, to receive, to allow. And when you do, you begin to live a different kind of life, a softer life, a clearer life. Not because the world stops changing, but because you no longer resist the changes. You welcome them, even the ones that hurt, because you know now pain is not punishment, it's purification. Every time something is stripped away, it's making room for something more honest, more aligned, more true. That relationship that fell apart, it wasn't a failure, it was a clearing. That plan that collapsed, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. That version of yourself that no longer fits, it's not a loss, it's a return. You're not falling behind. You're falling into yourself. Into the self that doesn't need validation, into the self that doesn't need to hustle for love, into the self that can walk away from what doesn't feel right, not because it's easy, but because it's time. You're not here to convince life to bless you. You're here to remember that it already has. The breath in your lungs is proof. The stillness in your core is proof. The fact that you're listening to this now, opening, softening, waking up, that is proof. Something inside you is ready to stop striving and start receiving, ready to let the wisdom of the universe speak louder than the fear of the ego, ready to let your life be shaped not by force but by frequency. And your frequency, it shifts when you surrender, when you stop waiting for life to be different and start becoming the energy of what you desire, not pretending, not performing, just embodying peace, wholeness, trust. You don't become magnetic by chasing. You become magnetic by resting in the truth of who you are. And who you are is not small, not broken, not behind. You are not a mistake, and your timing isn't off. Every detour made you softer. Every delay taught you patience. Every moment of confusion sharpened your clarity. And now, here you are. Not because you forced your way here, but because something deeper pulled you. That's how this works. The soul moves quietly. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It waits. It watches for the moment you stop resisting long enough to hear it. And when you do, when you finally drop the armor, the stories, the pressure, what's left is pure. What's left is... You can feel it now, can't you? That calm that has nothing to do with what's happening around you. That inner yes that doesn't need permission from the outside world. That deep breath that reminds you this moment is enough. You are enough. The process is enough. And even what doesn't make sense yet is enough. Because clarity comes from living, not thinking, from feeling, not forcing. And the more you live from trust, the more trust becomes your new default. It stops being something you practice. It starts being who you are. Not because you have all the answers, but because you don't need them. You just need the next step, and then the next one. And that's all you ever needed. The journey isn't about arriving, it's about allowing. It's about knowing you're not the one writing the entire script, but you're the one who gets to choose how you show up in every scene. With fear or with faith, with resistance or with reverence, with force or with flow. And when you choose flow, you begin to notice the divine in everything, in the ordinary, in the pauses, in the waiting. You see that life isn't happening to you or in spite of you. It's happening for you and through you. It's speaking in every breath. It's guiding you in every quiet moment. It's showing you how to live without gripping so tightly. So loosen your grip. Let yourself be held. Let yourself be led. Let yourself be loved, not for who you try to be, but for who you already are. The version of you that doesn't need to perform. The version of you that doesn't need to explain or justify or overthink. The version of you that simply is. That's the version the universe responds to. That's the one it was waiting for all along. Not the perfect one, the real one. The one who trusts, the one who listens, the one who opens. So let this be the moment you stop trying to make it all happen, and instead allow it to happen through you. Let this be the breath where you stop chasing peace and start becoming it. Let this be the shift from pressure to presence, from doing to being, from fear to flow. You're not here to carry the weight of the world. You're here to remember that the world was never yours to carry. You're here to let go, to breathe deeper, to walk softer, to return to the stillness that never left you. The stillness that says, it's okay now. You don't have to try so hard. You were never alone in this. You're not alone. You never were. You were just trying to do the work of the entire universe by yourself. And now, you don't have to. Because your only job is not to control, not to predict, not to manipulate. Your only job is to trust, to allow, to surrender, to remember, to let the universe take over. And it will. Because it always has.